What's up, everybody, and welcome on into the Thursday NBA Strategy Show here on all your Awesemo favorite channels, be it the podcast network or, of course, right here on YouTube. Maybe you're watching on social media. I don't know where you are. The point is you're here with us, and we appreciate it. I'm Adam Kaufman, and let's bring in Josh Engleman. Josh, I missed you last week. I was a little under the weather. I had no voice, which was probably good for a lot of people out there. But for you, it meant no DVD pull, and that's just a shame.
I know it's a little heartbreaking. I didn't have the ability to pull any DVDs off of Laffy's wall. It would just be probably smut if I had to guess. So we didn't get to do that. So we had to push it off for a week, which is fine by me. I was happy to have you back.
That's right. You have not yet found the smut section, which, let's be honest, that's not there. Where would you even put it? Do you put it next to the romantic comedies just to have a gradual progression? Do you drama? I don't know where it would go.
I mean, my kind would go in the horror section, but that's just me.
Well played, sir. Thank you all for being with us and jumping on into the chat and all that good stuff. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Obviously, when it comes to NBA strategy, though, there's not a ton. Obviously, there's just the 2 games tonight, but it's playoff season. That's what goes on. You only had the one, just a showdown slate yesterday, Denver and Phoenix. We can get into that as well. And bigger picture stuff, have the playoffs just turned your calendar, your schedule, your body clock upside down? Because I know usually you're an early to bed kind of guy, early riser for the process and all that. But I saw you on nice and late getting ready for the evening game. And I imagine you probably watched some of it.
I did. I watched the first half. At that point in time, I had to tap out. Otherwise, I would never make it to the morning. But yeah, it's a different schedule, but I like it because it's good basketball. It's not like I'm staying up late to watch the Kings play. Insert another crappy team here. It's all good. So I don't mind being up later if I'm watching quality. And we're slowly but surely getting into legitimate quality every time. Blowouts be damned.
So I was thinking, I've probably talked about this with you. I can't remember, though. It goes back a few weeks. I thought that Portland was going to beat Denver. I really did. And obviously, it was a competitive, fun series. And just so happened that Joker's group beat Dame's group. And that's what it came down to. It was more about the supporting cast. And I would take Denver probably that much more seriously if it wasn't missing its second best player in Jamal Murray. And I know Will Barton was back out there last night in a limited role. Michael Porter Jr. did MPJ things, which is frustrate the hell out of you when you roster him in fantasy because he's so very boomer bust in my personal experience. But the fact of the matter is Denver blown out by Phoenix, and a team that I never took seriously at all during the regular season, despite the hype in terms of being a true championship contender, Utah. I would love to see a Phoenix-Utah series coming up.
I don't know what I want coming out of that Utah Clippers series, because in the grand scheme of things, I would like to see the Clippers make the finals and play whatever comes out of the East, because I think that's sort of the ultimate dream scenario. And that in that setup, the Clippers would have won 3 series. They have Kawhi, who is arguably the best player in the league, going up against what it's looking like the Nets and Kevin Durant, who is arguably the best player in the league. And I like seeing that legitimate peak get to the end of the line. But it's also possible that we're seeing a little bit of a different turn in the NBA, whether that is Phoenix getting through, the Jazz as a more ensemble group. I think we could see, I wouldn't be surprised if any one of those 3 teams, Jazz, Phoenix, Clippers, in the finals being competitive. I obviously don't expect Denver to be getting there anytime soon.
Zeroing in on last night, is this just how it's going to play out? The Suns with Chris Paul and a healthy Chris Paul, and obviously tons of balance on that roster. He was highlighting it last night. This guy does this guy does that. We're locked and loaded, basically. It's a fun team to watch. I mean, you got Ryan McDonough out there on Twitter every single day, just basking in the greatness of the team that he mostly built and watching from afar.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see what's going on in Phoenix. I liked a lot of their component parts. Obviously, Chris Paul makes every team better once he gets there. It's nice to see Devin Booker have additional talent around him so that he can thrive. Bridges and Crowder do the exact things that this team needs perfectly. The guy that's surprising me the most is DeAndre Ayton. He coming out, DeAndre Ayton was an offensive center that had no prayer whatsoever defensively. That was his his biggest issue was that he did not look like he was ever going to get it on the court from a defensive standpoint. And that is sort of like the exact opposite of where we stand now. He's been great defensively. And the fact that he's as young as he is, clearly it's still a mistake. And this team would look a little bit better if Luka Doncic was in his stead. But that's okay now. I think that they are at least getting the best case scenario for what DeAndre Ayton could have been. And that's going to be pretty valuable over the next 5+ years.
I know it's not a huge market, for basketball or just in general, but I just love seeing the Suns relevant again, man. Like it goes back to obviously like the Mike D'Antoni 7 seconds or less offense and Steve Nash winning MVPs. And before that, I have these visions of, Charles Barkley in the purple uniform out there on the court doing hit. I like seeing good. I like seeing good things happen to Phoenix. I guess I don't know that I'm a Suns fan per se, but they were, always a team that I enjoyed watching growing up. And, they've had very much so. They've had their ups and downs over the years, but I like seeing them come out of it and becoming relevant again at, for June basketball.
Yeah. Look, we're talking about an organization that has generally been pretty good over the past 30 years. They've had multiple different runs with different groups of players, whether it's Barkley's Suns, into the J Kidd era, into the Nash era. And now, we're heading into this era. The problem for a while was Robert Sarver pinching pennies and not wanting to spend just enough to keep legitimate contenders together. I mean, they were good for multiple years in that Nash Amari stretch. Penny pinching cost them a little bit. They're a bigger market than it seems. Their weather is fantastic. Their access to Los Angeles, fantastic. So they've got a lot of like really positive notes. It just so happened that they had really poor ownership for a large majority of it. We'll see how that plays out moving forward. And we'll see what happens with Chris Paul moving forward. He has a $40 million player option or whatever for next year, whether he picks up or opts in to that player option or whether they renegotiate, extend him for a couple of years. I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do, but it seems now like he's got to stick around. I think the future is pretty bright for Phoenix.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, as you said, and the stats bear it out, and it's the graphic that you see all the time from SportsCenter. It's all over Twitter. But like Chris Paul teams, when he arrives, the teams get better, at least in the regular season. They get exponentially better. And then it's just been that common occurrence of, well, they fell short again. Is Chris Paul ever going to win a championship? But to the larger point, maybe they'll win this year, maybe they won't. We'll see. But what he is doing and what he's doing with this team, people have just been laughing for years at that Chris Paul contract. Like, oh my God, how could he get that deal? And who's going to acquire him? And who's going to trade for that deal? Who's going to absorb that deal? They can't wait to unload that deal. But he just keeps on doing his thing. He keeps on blocking out the noise, keeps on performing. And like you said, here he is. And who knows, could even get extended.
I think that one of the things we're learning now, and it made a lot of sense back in the day. Look, people didn't age as well 15, 20 years ago because we didn't have the same sort of ability to keep your body healthy.
Sure.
Medicine is different. So we saw guys leave their peaks early. And I think what we've sort of underrated are big contracts for guys that are legitimate all NBA type talents. When you give a big contract to, who's going to be a really good example here? Look, like Andrew Wiggins, for example, like throwing those contracts, those become an albatross if it doesn't work out correctly. But if you're going to give that deal to, like the John Wall one's bad, but that's more of an injury bad.
Sure.
If you're going to give that kind of contract, this $40 million to Chris Paul, like for us to think that he's just going to fall off of a cliff is a real problem. If he's going to be more injured, that is a different discussion to me. But I never understood that he was going to just be like a 6-minute a game guy at the end of the deal. It never really made a ton of sense to me. It's a lot of money to pay someone of his age, but we're also getting someone at the top of the game. He's not like the 30th best guy in the NBA getting overpaid and then the contract looks bad. Like an Al Horford contract for right now. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's bad, and it is an overpay. He's old too. But if you move Al Horford to like a legitimate team that isn't the Sixers, I don't think that Al Horford looks like he's just simply not justifying that contract. I think we're going to see Kevin Love get moved sometime next year, and he's going to have He's not going to have like an athletic renaissance because he's Kevin Love, but he's obviously in better shape than he used to be. I think he's going to look a lot like Blake Griffin is looking for the Nets now. It's probably really hard to get super energetic when you want to go play a game in Cleveland and you suck. Same way that it did for Blake Griffin in Detroit. But if Kevin Love can be the sixth best guy on a team, just doing the dirty work for rebounding, which he has always been an excellent rebounder, knock down your shots, I think we're going to see that happen where the contract doesn't look like the contract aids that it is right now.
So to put a bow on this game, because we got two more today to talk about and a whole lot of fantasy related stuff and obviously betting content and all the good stuff that you come here for, ultimately beyond just general NBA conversation. Is this where we're going? Is it going to be Phoenix coming out of this series? Is Denver going to put up a fight? I mean, you got the MVP, obviously, in Jokic. You got, as we've talked about, some good balance, but you're not getting enough out of Aaron Gordon. You're not getting enough out of MPJ, as mentioned. And there's only so much that Joker and minimal company around him is going to be able to do himself.
The series is over. Phoenix is too balanced. They don't really have any holes. I can't really see what Denver can exploit at this point in time to try to win 4 out of the next 5 games. So to me, that season is cooked, and we're trying to figure out who's going to be playing Phoenix. Suns, right. By the way, minus 910 to win the series.
Is that right? My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, before we do move on, folks, let's get into a little Fantasy Cruncher lineup study with our man Josh right here. Obviously dissecting all things DFS, be it DK, FanDuel, whatever you're looking at. And what's standing out to you?
Yeah, so I did have the correct amount of guys yesterday, or the correct guys on DraftKings in order to have the optimal.
The correct amount. Lineup's not.
Yeah, no, I played less, actually. I played less. So
and still won.
Exactly. Winning lineup yesterday. Oh, I'm in the wrong contest. Give me a second. I clicked on the wrong one. June 9th. For some reason, it defaulted to the 8th. I don't know why that happened. All right, now we go. We got it. I know what the lineup is off the top of my head because I had it. I just know that the captain is different. So Jokic in the captain spot was the big winner here. Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, Torrey Craig, and Paul Millsap rounded out the lineup. I had this lineup with Booker at the captain spot and Jokic in the utility, which I would like to do 1,000 times out of 1,000. The amount of duplications on the lineup that won last night, 262.
Wow.
That is a lot. First place was 100,000. It paid out $1,016. So
well, you get that many duplicates.
Yeah, so I have the Booker version of that lineup. Booker, Paul, Ayton, Jokic, Millsap, Craig. That lineup was duped 21 times. The Chris Paul version of that lineup with Chris Paul at the captain, that was duped 16 times. That is like the next one up. But what I want to point out here for those two things are, if in either of those situations, Chris Paul or Devin Booker score slightly more points, Jokic scores slightly less, you're chopping with 15 people instead of 250. The win still feels exceptional at that point. So not having Jokic in the captain in that particular lineup construction, I'm thrilled. Even knowing that it's the optimal lineup right now, I don't think that I would want it. I'm happy with where I landed on the Booker lineup. I just needed a slight redistribution of points because it's not just raw points. Jokic, I don't need Devin Booker to outscore Nikola Jokic. I just need the ratio of those two guys when you get a 1.5 multiplier to be a little bit closer. Or whether that's the Booker version or the Paul version. To me, those are the much more advantageous lineups to play in GPPs. And just looking at the duplication numbers from 260 to 16, it's a no-brainer.
So what were the total points for that lineup again?
241.13.
That was DK or FanDuel?
DK. So Jokic in the captain spot with north of 78.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, Ayton, and Booker obviously had solid days. Ayton was a little bit more pedestrian. Paul Millsap was excellent at 2,600. And then Torrey Craig, 22 fantasy points at 2,200 was absolutely necessity once Jokic had a decent day.
So you know what I did? And I really liked it. I stand by it. It didn't score nearly as well as that. It was 221. Still good enough for where I was putting my lineups. But yeah, and there were obvious hollow spots, not because they were bad plays, but just because of the performance. Like, I stand by the lineup. I would do the lineup again in this series, and I might, for that matter, depending on whether, pricing works out going forward. But filled it out with the exception of, I think, $100 was all I left. But I did that for me, what is rare, and it's certainly differentiation. It's sort of contrarian, but I ultimately stacked all the good players in the flex and then just went with a cheaper punt play who paid out at captain. So I went with Joker, Booker, Paul, Ayton, and Porter, all in my flex. And as we know, like, Ayton didn't excel. He was 27.5, but he's got that 40-point ceiling. Porter went for just 20 in the snowflake. He was terrible, but we know what he's capable of. And then at captain, I had Craig, who had 33. So it was a strong build. Conceptually. Just little disappointment on the back end of the studs.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, Ayton's line seems like it's not all that great, but Jokic and Chris Paul both got over 50 fantasy points. Right. Booker at 37. Ayton's still the fourth highest scorer at 27.5. So he becomes very, very interesting just by default because everything was so spread out given the makeup of that game.
So we got 2 games to talk about tonight. Obviously, we will get there. Before we move on, though, how about a little Awesemo Hall of Fame treatment? We can celebrate the people who did well, obviously, and maybe some of those winners that Josh was referring to. Obviously, the Awesemo Hall of Fame, if you don't know how it works, you want to be celebrated. It's very easy. Download the Awesemo avatar. Go to awesemo.com/avatar. Place in the top 3 of any contest with over 5,000 contestants. So not easy, obviously, but it's not supposed to be, for that matter, to get the rewards. Tweet the wins to the @Awesemo Hall of Fame Twitter handle. It's @Awesemo HOF. That's the account. Then you win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You can just look at all the great stuff that is available to you right there. All the instructions, all the people that we've seen win in the past. Obviously, who would you like to shout out today? Anyone come to mind?
I'd like to shout out myself, but unfortunately, I'm not in there for anything that I've done as of late. Peter Hanley, I know, picked up a bunch of wins yesterday off the top of my head, just thinking about what I saw in Slack. We do like to point him out because he has them constantly. Kilo Whiskey creating a Twitter account to join our Hall of Fame. That one matters to me. Longtime viewer, so it's nice to see.
All right. So, again, smash that like button here if you're watching with us on YouTube. And obviously, it's the only place you can be watching if you're watching live, and we appreciate that. But if you are not able to watch shows live, a little inception for you, something to think about later on as you listen in not real time. If this is you, pay attention. Awesemo shows are not only available on YouTube, where they all get archived, and you can obviously find them. They are available to you on the Awesemo Podcast Network as well, folks. And even better, when you watch and submit a 5-star review with your Twitter handle or Awesemo username included, you will be entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, okay? We will award one lucky winner every Friday. That is tomorrow. Your review will be eligible to win for up to 1 year as well, so it's not just a one and done that goes away. We keep it on file for you, and it's the best chance out there to win a free month of Awesemo Plus, as you will be competing with less people in this contest than any other giveaway that we run. So make sure that you use that 5-star rating and review. Make it count, obviously. We got a podcast for every sport, available for every major platform as well. Head on over to awesemo.com/podcast to check out the very latest, and best of luck to you. Josh, I hope you win as well.
Yeah, so do I, man. So do I.
That's what it's all about. See you guys in the chat. Keep up the entertainment by all means. And yes, the DVD pull will happen today. Jordan, selfishly, our producer, decided to focus on the actual games on that sidebar next to my head on your screen, as opposed to writing DVD pull, which he typically does when there's so little going on. So, we're just going to have to live with that and not highlight it as a real fixture, a real draw for this show. Brooklyn and Milwaukee, what we got coming up a little bit later on tonight. The Clippers and Utah as well. That series, those two teams we talked a little bit about already, but, we may as well, obviously, go in order, talk about Brooklyn and Milwaukee, and we'll get into all the fantasy stuff as well. Let's just isolate what Alex has. If you are a part of Awesemo Plus and you like to look at the projections for tonight, starting off with Brooklyn, and the great thing about playoffs, Josh highlighted earlier, is you get a handle on obviously what rotations are, who's in, who's out, all that good stuff much earlier in the day. And for Brooklyn, it's not going to be any James Harden. It's not going to be any Jeff Green. Kevin Durant stands out as obviously a very good play, but he's expensive. Got to pay up for him, whether that's, a captain in the showdown, obviously in Classic. He's 10-6 on DK. 5.2 is his value projection from Alex, and right around 55 fantasy points. Kyrie Irving not in as good a spot, but he's certainly not in a bad one. We know that. Really, for Alex and maybe for you, I want your thoughts, obviously. Comes down to the value. Blake Griffin, Mike James, Bruce Brown, these guys all projected for 5 to 7x value. So starting with Brooklyn, what stands out to you?
So this is the game that I'm targeting aggressively in comparison to the Clippers Jazz game. It's just a better DFS spot in general, but I'm much heavier on the Milwaukee side. I'm also going to burp. God, I feel like Laffy. Anyway,
yeah, I bet it. Look, I've been trying not to cough the whole show, still getting over this stupid cold. So I'm with you. If you got to burp, let it out.
To be fair, it's going to be really hard for you to not cough.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so Brooklyn is a tale of two sides to me because the value on DraftKings is aggressive. Mike James, 3,800, picking up 47% ownership. Totally agree with it. Blake Griffin, 4,800, picking up 47% ownership. Totally agree with it. Bruce Brown, 4,200, picking up 36% ownership. Totally agree with it. Those three guys are all underpriced, and they are driving the ownership to the top. Mike James and Blake Griffin are more owned than Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. That's kind of crazy, but I get it. That price tag looks good. Those guys don't have those same prices. Now, you're still playing them on FanDuel, but Mike James is 4,800. That's $1,000 more expensive. So while he's uber chalk on DraftKings, he's just an okay-ish play on FanDuel. Bruce Brown is 5,900 on FanDuel. That's $1,700 more expensive. So while I'll still get to a little bit of Bruce Brown, wildly better on DK. And then finally, Blake Griffin, 5,500. He's $700 more expensive. I still like him quite a bit because you have to roster two guys at power forward. So I don't mind the ownership on FanDuel, but he's just a much more efficient play on DK. Where I like getting to the studs is FanDuel. 10-7 for Durant, but you got to roster two guys at the position. So he's 47% owned, and I think that looks good given the matchup. Same for Kyrie, 9,700 on FanDuel. I like the ownership of both of those guys. So I like Durant and Kyrie more on FanDuel than I do on DraftKings. I love the value on DraftKings more than I do on FanDuel. And through all of that, I never really said anything about Joe Harris, who just sort of exists in these slates. On FanDuel, I don't mind him, again, because you have to roster two guys at every position, and he's going to play like 36 minutes if it's competitive. But on DK, $5,700 Joe Harris is a bit of a problem for me.
Well, people are asking about Chris Middleton on the other side, so we can get into that in Milwaukee. And you really, in terms of top heavy onto really on down to the value, not super value, but we know what the Bucks rotation is. You know who the plays are, and they're all projected to be good plays. Doesn't mean Milwaukee's going to win. We'll get to some of that, obviously, but just fantasy. Giannis, Holiday, Middleton, Lopez. Those are your guys, all projected for 5x value, a range of points. Clearly, Giannis up over 60, 40 plus for both Holiday and Middleton. Lopez coming in at pretty good value. What do you think here?
Play this entire team, particularly on FanDuel, where I think every single guy that gets minutes is under-owned. Literally all of them are showing up in green in my ratio metric. The only guy that isn't on DraftKings is Giannis, and I still have him as my second best play on DK and in the optimal lineup 46% of the time. One of two things happens here. Either Brooklyn beats the brakes off of them again, and we realize that Milwaukee is going to be uncompetitive in this series, or the Bucks play like they should as the Bucks, and the fact that they're 3-point favorites today, and we get what we've been expecting. So Giannis on both sites, 11-3 on FanDuel, 11-1 on DraftKings. I think it's the best pay up option on the day. I'm going to have a ton. I don't really know what else I can say. Even though we think that he's been bad to a degree, he's still at 1.52 fantasy points per minute during the playoffs. Like, he's the best per minute fantasy performer on the planet. And if this game is competitive, he's playing 40 minutes. I'm not getting away from Giannis at all. But I'm not getting away from anything. Drew Holiday, 8,200 on FanDuel, 7,600 on DraftKings. Looks exceptional. To me, under-owned on both sites. On DraftKings, or on FanDuel in particular, only at just under 40% ownership. I have him north of 50. I'm going back to my boy Middleton. At some point in time, I expect him to make a mid-range jumper in this series. Brooklyn's defense isn't supposed to be good. I don't think they continue being amazing. The shots are going to start to fall. I'm going to Holiday. I'm going to Middleton. Brooke Lopez, PJ Tucker, Bryn Forbes, 3,900 on FanDuel. PJ Tucker, 3,800 on FanDuel. Even PJ Tucker at 3,100 on DraftKings. That's a pay down option that allows you to get to more pay up options. It's never fun. He's like a 0.5 fantasy point per minute guy. It's absolutely terrible. But if he's going to play 26, 27, 28 minutes, I'm in for that. I like everything from Milwaukee all the way down to someone like Bobby Portis. I think most of these guys are under-owned. I think Milwaukee wakes up.
So with the Clippers, obviously still to come, later on tonight, and the Jazz as well. This game, like you said, you're aggressive with this game. Talking specifically about the Classic, regardless of which site you're looking at, are you loading up? Are you heavily stacking this game? Is it, 6-7 plays from this game? What are you thinking?
I will not have any problems having the max amount of bucks in a lineup if it comes to that. I will try to limit the amount of Holiday, Giannis, Middleton lineups that I have. I wouldn't completely disregard it, and I will have that full trio. But I think a lot of the crunch that I would run would be a max 2 of 3 and then grabbing some value as well. There's just only so many fantasy points to go around. And those salaries are slightly problematic. I would much rather just get, instead of having Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton in 60% of my stuff, I'd rather go to 2 of 3 in most lineups and then just turn one of Holiday or Middleton into, Donovan Mitchell or something of that ilk.
So who's your other stud in an ideal world then? And maybe it's, Kevin Durant, maybe it's the other game.
No, because I'm so heavy on Milwaukee, I'd be more likely to get to Durant or Kyrie and just go full onslaught of Milwaukee and Brooklyn and hope that the Clippers Jazz game becomes either a poor shooting night or just a defensive game. 13 point difference between the totals for that game, or at least it was earlier today. So for me personally, I'm going to try to get as much of Milwaukee, Brooklyn as I can.
Now, what about the showdown approach? If, for people looking at this game in particular, I talked about obviously what I did for Denver and Phoenix last night. Could you justify something like that for this game? And I don't know how the math checks out. I haven't done a dummy build. I could sit here and do it, I guess, but you're going to pay up for as many guys as you can pay up for, and captain, let's say, I don't know, James or Brown, something like that, and just sort of hope for the best? Or do you want to flip it and go with one of those bucks in particular you were highlighting as a really good captain?
That's a good question. I hadn't looked at it yet. I'm pulling it up now to see. I did run a crunch for it earlier today, and I don't remember what showed up on that side because we ran a Clippers Jazz crunch after that, and it sort of removed all of the information that was in my brain. So let me pull this up now. We have Brooklyn, Milwaukee. Do I still have the crunch open? I don't. That would have been fun though. Let's switch to zero randomness. So my optimal, if we're looking at the showdown for this game, has Nick Claxton in the captain spot, oddly enough. And that allows you to pay up for Giannis, Durant, Kyrie, Drew Holiday, and then Mike James rounds out that lineup. Now that's not going to be like a frequent combination for sure. Right. But that does end up being my literal optimal just to try to get in more of the studs. If we look at just sort of spreading out that exposure, to me, Giannis is the clear-cut top captain option. It looks a lot like yesterday's game with Jokic. Durant and Drew are probably my next 2 guys up. If I'm looking at captain, Kyrie coming in like a pretty solid 4th. Middleton would be 5th.
Something to think about for the people, obviously. And let's see, 720 Red Dog. Thoughts on the Bucks in general. So, yeah, let's just get into that real quick, and then we'll get back to all things fantasy. So I'm sure I know you've been paying attention. How much you've been watching, I don't know of these two teams, but it's obviously, this is embarrassing. This is a complete and utter embarrassment on the part of Milwaukee. And this is from someone who thought going into the series, I really did believe the Bucks were going to win. Not easily or anything like that. Let's say 6 games or even 7 games. I thought Milwaukee was going to come out of the series, knock Brooklyn on its butt, move on. And the way that the Nets have taken it to the Bucks and absolutely, again, embarrassed them through 2 games. You have James Harden go down early in game 1, doesn't play in game 2. Game 2 is even more lopsided, out there winning by 30, 40 points. Giannis, I mean, just and they've had two pretty terrible shooting nights. One in particular, the first one from 3-point range, and then the second one pretty much across the board. But we know, you just highlighted it from a fantasy perspective, but in general, real life, we know how talented this Bucks team is. We know how many weapons they have. The fact that the Nets, whether it's Blake Griffin turning back the clock or some of their other value guys, peripheral guys stepping up when they need to, but the fact that they're going out and doing what they are doing to this Milwaukee team without a superstar, it's one thing to have Durant and Irving, and yeah, that's nothing to scoff at, but down a superstar, down James Harden, and not like to the point where Brooklyn, Josh, is so confident, so cocky. And this, I'm not saying this is actually the mindset there among Steve Nash and company, but this is certainly how I take it. And definitely how, if you're Mike Budenholzer fighting for your job, or Giannis fighting for your pride and to some degree your reputation, how you should take it. Brooklyn is so cocky right now that it's not even playing mind games with the James Harden and, to a much lesser degree, Jeff Green element of things for game 3. Not saying, well, game time decision, we'll see how it goes. No, clear cut announced yesterday, up 2-0 in the series. Nope, they're out. Don't even need them. We don't need them to get by you. You guys suck. It is, I don't know how you look at any team in the East, and the finals are another conversation, but I don't know how you look at any team in the East other than the Nets and say, yes, this team is going to come out of this conference, which, as someone who hates the Nets, and in particular Kyrie Irving, that is painful, but it's also just reality. This is a joke on the part of the Bucks, who we were supposed to be taking seriously all year.
Yeah, I just don't know how much to overreact to 2 games, because those are all the same thoughts that I'm getting to. And it feels like we shouldn't just look at a 2-game sample, but it was so aggressive. And Milwaukee has been so inept in the half court, which was really supposed to be what Drew Holiday saved now. This was supposed to be, they can get the ball out of Giannis's hands in the half court, where it slowly grinds to a halt. It's not Eric Bledsoe any longer trying to run the offense. It's Drew Holiday. That's not the case. They had a 0.75 points per play in the half court. That is a 5th percentile outcome. I mean, we're talking about truly epically terrible. That was in the most recent game. If we go back to game 1 in the half court, 0.87 points per play in the half court. So that's 22nd percentile. They're not able to do anything unless they're out in transition. And they're not able to get out in transition because Brooklyn doesn't miss. So if Brooklyn's offense is cooking and they are scoring and scoring and scoring, it's limiting the amount of times that Milwaukee can get out in transition, the only place that they've been effective. And if they're having to take the ball out of the basket every time, Brooklyn's having an opportunity to set up. And if Milwaukee can't hit the shots, it's just this cascade of every single one of those things that can go wrong for Milwaukee is going wrong for Milwaukee. And then all of a sudden they're just getting bludgeoned. So they need to stop it right out of the gate. Defense needs to pick up a little bit, cause slightly more difficult shots for Brooklyn so that they can get out and transition more. And then somebody just has to wake up and hit a shot in the half court, whether that's Drew initiating the offense, Middleton initiating the offense. It doesn't appear that Giannis in the half court is going to be the answer for this series. Someone's going to need to start doing it in the half court. Otherwise, they're going to be down by 20 before they even blink an eye.
It's just unreal. Let's talk quickly here about our sponsor, No House Advantage. Of course, taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across, as we know, NBA, MLB, NFL, PGA, all for cash prizes, folks. There's PGA happening right now, as a matter of fact. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform. It levels the playing field, makes it easier for you to win real cash as compared with your traditional DFS sites. And with over 500 player prop offerings, folks, No House Advantage is the largest provider of player props in the industry. And the very best part is you will receive a $20 first match deposit bonus today with a promo code Awesemo. Naturally, promo code Awesemo. Beat your friends, not the house, and download in the App Store. Win big with player props today. Again, thanks to our sponsor, No House Advantage. Like I said, just all choked up being here with you. I can't get over it. I really can't get over it. The fact that Milwaukee is coming out and doing what it is doing and doing it so poorly, and that you have guys like Blake Griffin just now that he's somewhere where he wants to be and smells the possibility of a title, it's, oh, look at me, I'm fine, I'm totally fine. It's this team. I think what makes the Nets, unless you're a Nets fan, obviously, what makes the Nets so unlikable is you have, Durant like working on super team number 2 here, and obviously all the social media stuff and outward behavior toward the media, to some fans, the burner accounts, all that stuff, like and I'm not even saying I wouldn't be, who the hell knows, but so incredibly sensitive, and quite frankly way too good to be that sensitive, to give a crap what anybody thinks. And people would view him differently if he was looking for his first championship. He already won a couple when he hopped on the Warriors coattails. So that's him, who, by the way, is like arguably the most likable of the 3. Kyrie, I don't even need to do it. You guys all know. And it's not just Boston. It's not just a Boston bias. It goes back to Cleveland. It's the way he's behaved since he's been in Brooklyn as well. Like it's just, this dude we know he's different. We know he thinks differently, but he just thinks he's better than all of you. So that is, I'll save myself with Kyrie. And then you have James Harden, who tanked his way out of Houston, like sat there and got fat until they got rid of him. He's like, I'm going to keep eating and going to strip clubs until you trade me. And then finds his way to Brooklyn, ushers his way there in the same way that Blake Griffin, found his way out of Detroit to go. It's just this collection, and it's not everybody, it's not everyone on the roster, but it's this collection of guys. They're the Monstars, right? Like they're the villains. They are impossible to root for, again, unless you're a Nets fan. Like they're not even remotely as big a deal in New York as the Knicks, and the Knicks, who are not, barely a fraction as talented, and it's not going to be even as close to as big a deal if they wind up winning a championship, as the odds makers will tell you is going to happen. They're the favorites, and it's hard to pick against them right now, but they are so unlikable, Josh. They are so unlikable. Yes, there's a lot of talent, which makes them, sometimes fun to watch, but generally speaking, like if the Nets are in the NBA Finals, and had it been Nets Lakers, I've already said this, I wouldn't have watched a minute. I'm not sure I'm going to tune in for the Nets either, for that matter. I'm just glad LA is out, at least one of them.
All right. Well, because of the hate that the Nets get, I am taking a complete 180. I am now pro Nets because of their color scheme. I think they should start rocking NWO shirts. We got Joel Embiid coming out doing DX crotch chops. They got to go straight NWO, handing out 2 sweets to everybody. That's the direction I would go. They got the black and white structure right out of the gate. They need to just embrace their heeldom. That's the problem right now. Kyrie doesn't realize he's a heel. James Harden doesn't realize he's a heel. Kevin Durant, I think, does. I just don't think that he wants to be. So he could probably play the Hulk Hogan role in this scenario.
Sure.
That's the play right now. So steer into it, man. Just go full villain. Everybody needs a villain. That's the reason that the Miami Heat team was so appealing. Bron turned heel. He turned heel and got to face a Dirk Nowitzki team who was unquestionably going to be the face team in the finals. That creates the intrigue. Just be ridiculous. Get into it with people on Twitter. Just, don't call them any slurs or anything and you'll be fine. Naturally. But do whatever you want to do. This is where we're at nowadays. I love it. I am fully pro all of this nonsense. The only thing that ever legitimately bothers me is like the Kyrie's just not going to be here for 2 weeks things. But if his teammates don't seem to care, and it really doesn't seem like anybody cares. It seems like his past teammates love him. It seems like his current teammates love him. Doesn't seem like anybody has an issue on the team with the way that he's handling himself in basketball. I can't get mad about it then if it doesn't look like anybody else cares. And whatever they did, it seems to be working.
Yeah, that's certainly, I wouldn't say executives, management, coaches, they feel that same way, but you're right. Guys beloved by teammates, wherever, maybe not wherever he's gone, definitely in Boston. Like, you want to talk about the Bucks getting embarrassed. Celtics got the floor wiped with them in the last round and couldn't have been giving him bigger hugs. Kyrie Irving, after, like, he stomped their logo and he's going out there and giving big hugs after the series. It was just, I missed like the Kevin Garnett and guys that came before him, as opposed to the AAU culture that we're in now, where just everybody's friends. like you said, embrace the heel thing. If you're going to embrace the heel thing and be the bad guys, maybe I would feel differently about them. But it's because all of them, and, Irving and Durant are at the top of the list. Honestly, I don't even know how Harden feels because he barely talks to the media anyway. But those other two guys are at the top of the list in terms of, really just not leaning into it and wanting to be so beloved and not understanding why they're not liked, which makes the whole thing less tolerable.
Yeah, so that really is the problem. Like, do I prefer the back in the, like, if Kyrie comes in and stomps on the Celtics logo during the KG era, or even go all the way back to like the Bird, Mikhail Parrish era, like there's going to be a real problem on the floor. And that's good. Now, to me, that's also like too far. Like no one should be getting injured for these things. We're playing a basketball game here. Like, people take this way too seriously. We don't have like accountants fighting each other over like their accounting practices in other places. So to me, there's a middle ground. You have to be aware that this is media and you are trying to sell yourself to be more interesting. It's all theatrics. Whether or not this is just, to me, it's no different than professional wrestling. You need to build intrigue. You need to sell yourself. I would want to cause that. And then when I get behind closed doors, we all laugh about it and get a bottle of wine and talk about how we just pulled one over on all of the fans. And then you open up Twitter and it's just of everybody talking about it. You have to be self-aware. We need kayfabe in the NBA. We need people to think that this stuff is real, even though it isn't. Take some hints from professional wrestling, everybody. That's the blueprint that we need here.
Get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for, nearly every DFS sport out there with the Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. It includes full access to all the premium content tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, so much more. We've been talking about Fantasy Cruncher and all that good stuff. You can do it all, folks. If you are a new user to Awesemo Plus Platinum, you can take advantage of the promo code that we have for this show, which is NBA Strategy Show, okay? NBA Strategy Show, all caps, one word. That is NBA Strategy Show for 15% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, if you are only interested in playing NBA DFS, you can sign up now. Our Awesemo Plus NBA weekly package gives you full access to Awesemo Plus, access to NBA Showdown, single game contest. Not, it's considerably cheaper. It's not expensive. $16.95 or $4.95 NBA Weekly Express, which will, again, highlight Awesemo Plus Showdown and single game contest. So stop guessing, start winning, and like I said, choked up. Join Awesemo Plus today. So do that. We have one more game to get to, too, is the chat all hot and bothered, which is good.
I love it. We got the question, who is the John Cena of the NBA? To me, that's unquestionably Kyrie Irving. Kids love him. His
Cena's
shoes
so
are
likable, though.
His shoes are incredibly popular, but the smarts all boo him. Everybody that thinks they're a genius hates Kyrie now, but all the kids love him. That's the exact same scenario as Cena. The kids weren't booing Cena. It was guys like me booing Cena. And then it flips on itself and becomes the opposite. So to me, unquestionably, Kyrie Irving is the John Cena of the NBA.
I mean, I guess Cena did go on and has continued to have a successful movie career. Shout out Fast 9 on the way. And Kyrie's got Uncle Drew.
People are saying Curry is Cena. No one hates Steph Curry.
No one. Literally no one.
No.
Not one person.
Like, it's just, that's not, he doesn't do anything ridiculous. Like, he's just out there all the time. No, the Curry as the Cena is not, people aren't understanding what John Cena was in wrestling.
Believe it or not, we still have one game left to get to. We've talked a little bit about it, but not the fantasy component. That's Utah and the Clippers later on tonight. And again, based on Alex's projections, our own Awesemo himself, Alex Baker, there are no good fantasy plays on the part of the Utah Jazz. How are you seeing it?
Pretty much the same way. I don't have a ton of interest in this game, but there are a couple spots. Look, obviously you're going to be rostering guys from these games, and you're going to need this quite a bit. But Marcus Morris, I think, is the guy that stands out the most from the Clippers today. He's 5,300 on FanDuel. He's 4,500 on DraftKings. And for some reason, only picking up 28% ownership. So I really appreciate the value coming out of Marcus Morris. I think Reggie Jackson on FanDuel at 4,800 could be a value piece there. But there's not much else. Do you roll the dice on minutes for Luke Kennard, who actually closed the last game with Reggie Jackson fouling out? Luke Kennard is 3,300. To me, Kennard, 12% owned at 3,300. That is a value play that I'm looking to get to. Maybe a little bit of Reggie Jackson at 5,400. Don't put those guys, like maybe try to avoid having both of those guys in the same lineup since it looks like they might have a little bit of negative correlation. But I don't really have a ton of interest in everything from the Clippers. They're okay, but nothing exceptional. Like if Kawhi Leonard is 11K on FanDuel, there's no scenario where I can realistically get to Kawhi Leonard before I get to Kevin Durant or Giannis. They're not even in the same ballpark as far as I'm concerned. He's also not picking up the ownership, which makes sense. Paul George, who's shooting 31% from three in the playoffs this year, 8,500 on DK. I like that. He is the chalkiest guy from the Clippers. Makes sense to me. 9,200 on FanDuel. He is the chalkiest guy from the Clippers. Does not make sense to me. I would be quite a bit lighter than the field on Paul George on the FanDuel side. The problem in all of this is that I expect the Clippers to win this game. So someone's got to do it.
There is good fantasy on the part of the Clippers side. Good, opportunity. Kawhi, George, Batum. You could pay way down. Real good value play in Rondo. Projects to be in a good spot. Some people in the chat asking about Rondo's minutes and what happened there or what will happen there. He's projected for right around 20 fantasy points by Alex, but obviously top heavy guys. We know it. It's playoff P. See what he ends up doing. And then the glove, Kawhi Leonard. But, who's jumping out at you here?
The Kennard one is the easiest piece to get to, but the fact that Rondo is 3,500, I think there's a lot of upside in that price tag. He's 4,300 on FanDuel, so I don't think you need to go too crazy there. I mean, you get to him because he's in the rotation, but 3,500 works. Deciding between Rondo and Kennard is tricky, but if Luke Kennard is going to be 12% owned and Rondo is going to be 28% owned, I think the answer is right there. You just play a bit more Luke Kennard in GPPs. I don't expect him to get anywhere near the minutes that he got last time because of Reggie Jackson's foul trouble. But it appears that, like, if they're willing to close with him, even in that situation where Reggie Jackson is out, then I don't think that he goes all the way back to like 8 minutes today. I gave him 22. And at that point, I am very happy to get to Luke Kennard. I think he is going most underrepresented.
Let's talk a little bit about the betting player props, folks. These markets exist with nearly every major sports book, and if you have yet to give player props a shot, you are missing out, obviously, and no bet has a higher expected value than a player prop bet, which is why Awesemo has compiled the best NBA player props bets daily, derived straight from our NBA DFS projections, our NBA player props tool, now synced with Odd Shopper. So it's very good. You can find the best bets lines for NBA player props across sports books legal in the US. So sort by expected win percentage, ROI. You can gain the very best edge. And if you want some more insight on how to win player props, check out our guy Eric Lindquist, his player props tutorial, which is available to you right here on our YouTube channel as well. So make sure you do that. But taking a look at some of the player props for tonight, because I know those are the ones that Josh likes to hone in on here. Let's see. Giannis trying to avoid further embarrassment. Looks like his points are at 32.5, 33.5, depending on the book that you're looking at. What do you think?
I got him at 32.8, so it seems to be spot on.
Yeah, right in the middle. Kevin Durant in that same window, 31.5 to 32.5.
I got 32.9, so I guess I'm Team Durant in this spot.
All right.
Which I'm not mad about either. There are worse things in the world than cheering for Kevin Durant to score more points.
That's a good point. Claxton, you shouted him out, 3.5.
I got him at 4.8. I gave him 16 minutes. I mean, 3.5. That's just two quick putbacks.
2 buckets. That's it.
Yeah. So I'll take the over there by default. But boy, that'll be a hell of a sweat if he gets one in the first half, and you're just like, all right, he's got one more rotation to go. Just fall into something. Can somebody like trip over their own feet?
Donovan Mitchell, who has been electric. We saw what he did last time out. 30.5.
So I've got him at 29.2, but I have him in for 36 minutes. And it's possible that I have his usage a little light. His usage has been through the roof so far during the playoffs with Mike Conley off the floor. And I was a little bit pessimistic of going all the way to that rate. So I am slightly behind that number, but I think it's possible that by the time we get to lock, I'm basically right on that number. So I think the line itself is super efficient.
All right, you got, I'll do one more. How about Kawhi Leonard, 27.5?
I got him at 28. I'm not a fan of him because his pricing is pretty broken today, particularly on FanDuel, but he still grades out really well, like 28, 7, and 5 with 2.5 stocks. It's great. He's priced like he's a slightly better fantasy performer than he is.
Folks, would greatly appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button here on YouTube as we are making the push to 75,000 subscribers. A big number. We celebrated 50. Let's get to 75. So smash that like, but in particular, hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified whenever shows go live here on the YouTube channel all throughout the day. This right here, we're not done with this show. There's, a little bit more coming up, but then there are more shows throughout the day, including more NBA insights before those 2 games later on tonight. So a lot of good stuff to look forward to, obviously, and you want to know when it happens. And, also let us know what you think too, because we check out the comment section. We'll, a little bit later on, we see what you're writing. We look for the good things or the bad for that matter. We just look at what you're saying. Like to be part of the conversation with you, and we appreciate you being here with us. So why don't we wrap with, how about DVD pull action? What do you think?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All righty. Let me get your screen a little bit bigger.
Sure.
All right. What shelf do I want to go to?
Move it around.
Is that options? Okay? I did know that. I'm trying to find a shelf that I don't feel like I normally go to.
Share.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. So, is that Mark McGuire bobble? That shelf of bobbleheads with what looks like Mark McGuire?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go 2 shelves under that.
Okay.
I think I know what the green one is, so I'm going to stay away from that one. Okay. Let's go to the DVD to the right of the green one.
To the right of the green one. It's a very popular one. It's one everyone has seen. I don't think you'll be thrilled that you picked it.
Find out.
When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, nothing I've ever seen.
No? You haven't seen
I'm obviously familiar with the movie. I know the gimmick, the moaning and all. Not my cup of tea.
Look, it is how it's nice how we go full circle, though. I mean, you started off the show talking about movies with smut, and then you get the... And then you got the moaning scene in When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, that's so to me, like there was never going to be a movie that I would sit down to watch. When that came out, I don't even know when that came out, but I assume I was like 3 years old. I was never probably really clamoring for more Billy Crystal in my life.
1989.
So. There you go. I was 4. So like that's just a movie that's never going to exist to me and exist to a very different genre of people.
Velo says, never seen it. Looks trash. Next. Melvin loved that movie.
Yeah, I'll never see it. The only reason I would have ever seen it in the past is if it showed up on like TNT back when I would watch television and we didn't have the ability to watch everything that exists always.
Let's do one more in the interest of time and the fact that maybe we can find one you're more enthusiastic about.
Okay. Let's go to the left of the Taco Bell dog.
Okay.
So we're going to be like underneath Zach Galifianakis.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Let's go with, it's going to be like 7 or 8 in from the right. It's either like red or orange. I can't totally tell.
The red one. Okay. Honestly, I'm not sure I've even seen this movie.
Oh, boy.
I know. See if you remember it or if you've seen it. Novocaine with Steve Martin.
I may have seen that back in the day. Who's the person on the left that looks like Michael Jackson?
Not Michael Jackson.
Well, yeah, that much I know.
Laura Dern is in it.
Okay.
And Helena Bonham Carter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the Boston Globe calls it wickedly entertaining.
I bet they did.
Getting to the root of the problem is like pulling teeth. That's
the Boston Globe really used wicked in their description. That is so typical Boston.
I didn't even pick up on that.
I mean, what? Unreal. Somebody was like, well, I don't know, call it wicked awesome.
Call it wickedly entertaining.
So dumb. That's so stupid.
I do think, people are saying it's a weird movie. I haven't seen it, but that's all I really know about it. Is I also think it is a weird movie.
Can we talk about the fact that you own something you've never seen and will clearly never see? There's not going to be a scenario in the rest of your life where like, hey, hun, we need to get the Novocaine DVD out today.
Yeah, there really isn't a day that I mean, not only that, if I were to like explore the wall, there's a good chunk of these movies that are still in shrink wrap, which doesn't mean that I haven't seen them. It just means I haven't seen them on this specific disc. Maybe I saw it in the theater and then bought it and was like, yeah, I'll watch that 100 times. Or, I'm still going to go streaming by default. Like if I'm sitting on the couch and I want to put on a movie that I know I own, the first thing I'm going to do is search to see if I can find it streaming anywhere before I get off the couch to go get the disc.
How do you end up with Novocaine, the DVD?
Well, I don't know if you saw, it has a little red sticker on it. That indicates it was a pre-owned used DVD. What I think it was, if I remember right.
That's not better.
No, I'm not saying it's better, but what I'm saying, like it explained, I certainly didn't buy it new. What there was like a, probably it could have been a Blockbuster, but I don't think it was a video store that was going out of business. And I think I just bought a bunch of DVDs for like 50 cents or $1. And I was like, yeah, I like Steve Martin. I'll buy it. I think that is the origin of me obtaining Novocaine.
I bet you want that 50 cents back.
I would. There are a lot of movies on this wall that I would like my money back, to be perfectly honest. But
I mean, half of what we've picked at this point.
It's true.
Epic. Absolutely
Denzel.
epic.
Adam has a whole family video. That's what I'm saying. Good stuff. What's the outcome of these games tonight?
Oh, God. Clippers win in Utah. I'm okay with that stance. My heart says Milwaukee. My brain says the Brooklyn Nets go up 3-0. You guys can take your pick on whether you want to go with my heart or my brain. I have a sneaky suspicion that no one wants my brain, so we'll see.
I'm going to go Clippers and Bucks. I refuse to believe that I'm not saying the Bucks are going to win the series. They won't. But in terms of, in terms of falling down 3-0 and just rolling over and dying, no. I'm betting against that. Budenholzer's probably going to be looking for a job after this series, though. Feels that way.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I guess I get it. He'll probably be coaching in Indiana next year.
Melvin says, get rid of the DVDs, total digital now. I mean, conceptually, I get it. But for what good reason? I mean, if nothing else, it's a good Zoom background. It's a good display. It's just on the wall. Like, for what reason would I just say, you know what? Throw them all in the trash. Just chuck them. Chuck them all.
I mean, I've got the reason for you.
Give it to me.
They are all useless.
But aren't they pretty? Don't they look
If you
nice?
had a wall of VHS tapes behind you, I would give you the same response.
It's not the same. You can't even find a VHS player anymore. At least a lot of people still can, have an ability to play DVDs in their home.
I don't.
You don't have
my mother-in-law
system.
Yeah, I guess I could put it in the PS4. My mother-in-law sent my wife a CD.
Yeah.
And
you said, what
she
do we
had
do
to be
with
like,
this?
She was just like, I don't have anywhere to put this. She's like, I've got a MacBook. It doesn't have a drive. I don't have a CD player in my car. Like this goes, I have literally no mechanism to listen to this audio except for pulling up that entire album on Spotify.
You could have put it in your PlayStation or Xbox or whatever you got there. You could have played it that way.
Yeah, I didn't even think about putting it in the gaming system. And that's going to be going away pretty shortly, if I had to guess. Not my gaming system. The ability to just put a disc in. No one's going to do that any longer. It's craziness.
Zach says if you have a DVD collection, you probably have other collections. LOL. I mean, yeah, like I have things that I've collected.
Yeah, like hats. A skin lamp.
No, like bobbleheads.
That would open up a lot more for sports memorabilia behind you.
Yeah, but it would have to be really small sports memorabilia. It'd have to be like baseballs and things like that. You know, you can't put.
I'm not asking you to put a stadium on one of those shelves.
I know that.
Oh, I got the entire scoreboard.
Check out this chair I got from this old stadium they tore down. I just posted up on the wall.
I mean, looks like every one of those shelves would house a football. Basketball feels like it's probably too tall.
Oh, basketball would be way too big. Football would be too big.
Really?
I think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think you got the depth, and I'm not.
Oh yeah, well, depth I can't tell.
Yeah, and I'm not even totally sure about the width either.
I mean, I have a reference point to measure, but I'm not there. So
yeah. Well, we should go.
We should. I gotta go get a haircut, everybody.
Yeah, it's about that time.
Yeah, I gotta get it all cleaned up for when I ultimately lose this bet against Laffy, and then my hair turns purple or yellow or something terrible.
Jack says this is making me think about selling my DVD collection in a yard sale on Saturday.
Well, Zach, if you would like 50 cents, I'm sure tons of people would line up to buy it.
Yeah, me.
Yeah, probably. We're gonna find out you have just boxes. Be like, oh, I bought Zach's DVDs.
I still have, I mean, they're obviously like just in a box in my storage room, but I still have like probably 100 cassette tapes, which you talk about not having a mechanism to play something. I don't have anything that even sniffs the possibility of being able to play those.
I wouldn't even know where to go to get something to play it other than eBay.
Yeah. It's just nostalgia. Check out this
Hey, Radio Shack.
Single. I think Radio Shack for the most part shut down.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. All right, what do we have coming up today? Let's.
I got a job at Radio Shack once and then just never showed up.
That tracks. That sounds about right.
It's weird. Like sometimes I forget that it happened. I got the job. They called. They were like, "You can be here Monday." That's when we start. And Monday came around. I was like, "Man, I don't really want that job." I just never went.
Did they call?
I don't remember.
They follow up. Hey, you're supposed to be in today. Cool.
I think I just ghosted them.
Spags and Greg, 11:30, half hour from now, get into a little MLB live before lock for the early slate, folks. Later on, you will have MLB Deeper Dive. It'll be Spags and Alex. That's at 3 o'clock. This is all Eastern time, obviously. At 4:30, the tip-off, Kayla and the crew. Then you will have Laffy coming on in with the other Adam, Ship My Money, NBA Deeper Dive at 5:30, 6:30, NBA Live before lock. It will be Josh coming back after his haircut with Greg, and MMA strategy show tonight with Jason and Pete. That's at 8 o'clock. So that's your full day ahead on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Again, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Be with us for everything. We want you here. We appreciate your loyalty, and we look forward to the comments after this show. I can only imagine what those are going to look like on YouTube, but I am eager. I am excited. Producer Jordan, always keeping us in check and just laughing at our stupidity. Josh, enjoyed it, buddy. We'll do it again next week.
Can't wait.
See you, folks.